Good evening and welcome back, Poetry and Arts lovers. It is I, ZM Wise, and here I am with another interview just for you. I have with me on the telephone tonight none other than Mr. Mark Reitenga. Mark Reitenga plays a diverse style of dynamic music, including, but not limited to, rock, blues, folk, Latin, Christian, and jazz throughout the Metro Detroit area. Performing primarily as a solo acoustic artist, Mark commands a large variety of popular songs and originals with smooth vocals accompanied by clever guitar playing. Whether as a solo acoustic act, duo, trio, or full band, expect an interactive performance featuring familiar tunes in a fun, intimate setting. He is a 3-time Detroit Music Award Final Ballot nominee, and he was nominated for 3 Detroit Music Awards, 2015, 2017, and 2018. Americana Artist 2015 and 2017, and Americana Songwriter 2015 and Americana Song, The Detroit Blues 2017. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to be with me tonight, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate you.
Of course. So, can you please tell me just a little bit about some of your early influences? I was listening to a few of your songs, and of course, the blues appears time and time again. Who exactly did you look to when channeling the blues?
I would say my earliest influences actually weren't gigantically bluesy. As my music evolved, especially in my 30s, I actually took some lessons with a jazz guitar player, and he showed me blues scales, and I think he kind of opened my mind up to adding that to, the pop music I kind of grew up with. I grew up loving, the Beatles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Paul Simon and James Taylor and that kind of thing. Of course, all of those artists did have blues in their playing, but I had a teacher in my 30s, and it's embarrassing, I can't remember his last name, Rich Kololovich. He was a jazz player here in Detroit, and a lot from him, and I started to kind of play on some of the songs that I was doing. So I think that's the closest I can think of to answering your question.
Definitely. So I noticed there was a great deal of fusion in your work by the aforementioned genres I listed. They say that when you learn another language, you almost channel a completely different person. Do you find that you go through the same thing when you play these different genres throughout your music? And sometimes how does this fusion enhance your work?
That's a great question. Obviously, when you are playing different kinds of chord shapes, whether it be a diminished chord or an augmented chord, creating more of a jazzy sound. And I definitely have added that to my songs. When I was a younger man, they would be more simple, major, minor chord songs. But as I get older, adding, more extensions to the chords. Sorry, I know it sounds very technical, but a jazz player always is adding extensions to their chords. And I am not I could not play jazz on a high level in Detroit. I could never go in a jazz club and, be a virtuoso. But I do understand of music, and when you add it to your songs, like you said, it is another language, because typically pop music tends to be a little more simple. Simon, I guess I've always been more connected with jazzier musicians like Marvin Gaye, or even Joni Mitchell started getting into jazz sounds, Chicago, all those kind of stuff. But I guess that's the best answer I can give you, is the language of music is when you're able to use all the notes, right? There's 12 notes, and it's how you use them, right?
True. Yeah, and I notice especially with jazz chords, I mean, much like almost any jazz musician, it's extremely complex. It's just mesmerizing to see them see them channel such energy, like Robert Fripp of King Crimson, for example, primarily knows about jazz guitar and has a wide knowledge of jazz chords, and it's just fascinating that's in your repertoire in the first place.
Robert Fripp is one of the greats of all time. I don't know if I could compare to that, but I appreciate the comparison.
No, of course. So you have a few albums on Bandcamp, including Road Hymns and Ghost Stories, Unsung, and You Can't Go Home Again. But one that I came across an article, it was very striking about Unsung. I would really like to know the genesis behind that album.
Well, that's an awesome question. It's actually somewhat of a cannibalism of an original CD that I had made about 10 years ago called Unsung that had 11 songs on it, and I basically did it through the Guitar Center has a disc called Disc Factory. And you could basically just download the songs, and they would your 500 for you, and I would sell them at my gigs, and this is in my early 50s. Mm-hmm. Was pretty, but it wasn't super high. That's when able to reorder them. It was recommended to me to make a Bandcamp CD because then line. So I essentially took the best tracks that I had done at the time and the newest, kind of a refined Unsung. So I've almost somewhat bastardized my own music in that the original Unsung only had, I wonder if it even had one song on it. Yes, it had The Devil's Train was on the original Unsung, whereas Are You Waiting over the Detroit Blues were newer songs that I kind of added to it. I don't know if this makes any sense. So it's really Unsung number 2 is what it really should be called. But just so you know, it goes back to that reviewing system I've used. I use Reverb Nation as a reviewing mechanism because you pay your $15 and they'll give you a review, and if you score high enough, they'll put it on their website. So it's kind of an achievement, and made the 7.5 number. And the reason that is important is I also got killed on songs. There were songs where I was getting 5.7 and 6.4, and it's pretty hard to have the music criticized to begin with. It also taught me to put more focus on the vocals in the songs, the clarity of the lyrics, the neat, percussion I was adding, background vocals. You can't have too sparse of music, or it's will tune it out, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Killing time in order to explain the question that you asked, about my Unsung CD. And so really honest, it really should be called Unsung 2 because it's 3 new songs. And I was mentioning that they were all reviewed very well on Reverb Nation, and were 3 of the 4 songs were put on the website, on the Crowdfix website. So I guess they were just the songs I was the most proud of. And a couple of reviewers reviewed it and gave me good reviews. One magazine was called Neo Future, and the other was called Indie something.
I think it was Indie Guru.
Indie Guru.
Yes.
Indie Guru. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I do my homework. I noticed that album Unsung 2 is actually on SoundCloud, and I noticed there were like a few live tracks as well. And you were emphasizing before about The Devil's Train. Can you tell me what influenced that song?
Yeah, that's part of that. I live in a condominium complex, and it's really beautiful. But when I moved in, I was not aware that the train tracks were right behind the condo. Literally, I would say out my back garage, about 20 feet is where the train tracks are. So when I first lived there, the first 3 or 4 weeks, the train would wake you up at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. and I think I just wrote the song pretty much out of, a penance, so to speak. I was over-dramatizing the pain of getting up all the time and that it wouldn't let me sleep. And it was my intention to give that song to my favorite rock band here in Detroit. They're called the Reaper Men. We're not interested in the song, so it's ironic. Kind of was good for me, but they didn't want the song. So it's funny how life goes,
No, indeed. Hey, I've heard it, and may I say they're missing out. It's a pretty kick-ass song.
I like it very much too. So thank you.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of new songs, you have one out that's called "The Wonder." Tell me, what spawned that?
Yeah, I wrote that at the beginning of COVID in March when the shutdown happened here in Detroit, and I'm somewhat of a workaholic. I couldn't really go out and see customers. I had to just sit in my house, and I had been working on the lyric. Often when I'm in the sermon, I will use my note in my phone. I don't know, it's just a very, start rhyming words, and I was just thinking about all these world that have wonder and grace, and the things that make you live for, which made sense because, when COVID happened, it was pretty dour.
This is true.
So I was just trying to remind myself of the wonders of life, and it was a song about, hey, why is there, planets and stars and animals and fish and people? How do we reconcile this? Where, so.
Yeah, no.
Cosmos. That makes sense.
That's quite true. No, we need songs like that now more than ever, in my opinion. Do you have any advice for emerging artists who are pursuing a similar field?
Yes. In fact, I would have to be true what you're good at. I would listen to people who try to make you sound like other people. Every artist that I've loved, of course, and to be a true artist, you have to be and have your own voice and sound, and don't need to copy everybody. You need to create your own unique thing. Makes sense?
Oh, yes. No, yes, indeed. No, originality is key. Which for many, it can be quite a daunting task. We spend so much time attempting to find our own voice, and sometimes we can't help but be influenced by others. But as long as we find said voice in the end, that originality will come into play. People will recognize it as that's 100% Mark Reitenga.
Well, I thank you, and I hope that comes off that way. Obviously, I do have influences, but
of course,
authentic when you're inundated with all kinds of sounds from the past. So yeah, but I think that's always been the case. I don't think the musicians in the 50s and 60s, I'm sure they were not just making it up on the fly. They were also influenced by people. So you can't help it. If you buy us, learn when you're a kid, you're going to probably learn how to play Skip to My Lou or Yankee Doodle Dandy or whatever, right?
right.
It's, you got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And last but not least, before we close out, where can we find you? Where can we find your work?
I'm pretty much on every major musical source. If you really want to find me, I'm from Reverb Nation to SoundCloud to Spotify. Some of it was Reverb Nation. I paid a little money for them to basically export it, I guess. Of music, I'm more of a independent artist trying to make better music all the time on by the song and complimenting the song than selling 10,000s of it, if that makes any sense. I'm probably a unique artist in that regard.
No, crystal clear. It's actually a refreshing method.
Well, I a job, so during the day, so I am able to pay my bills that way, so I don't have to pay it selling the songs. But
of course,
true to my artistic vision, because they are songs that mean something to me. So I hope they'll mean something to the world. You know, makes sense.
Oh, of course, of course. Well, thank you very, very much for taking some time out of your evening to speak with me tonight. I'll definitely be including the aforementioned links in the video description, and all of you can find Mark Reitenga's work that way. Please listen to his music. You will not regret it. And once again, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Of course. Poetry lives, long live the arts. ZMY's signing off.